Welcome to Beyond the Music, the podcast where we dive into the lives and stories of people who shaped the world of music. I am Karina.
And I'm Lena. We're both classically trained singers, and this podcast is our chance to explore the fascinating intersections of music, history, and humanity.
In our previous episode, we discussed animals and music. But today, it's my turn to host the topic.
Mm-hmm. And you teased me last time.
I did. Sorry about that. Sorry, but not sorry.
I mean, I still know nothing, but now I'm really curious.
So, what happens when classical musicians lose their composure on purpose?
On stage, you mean? Or while having an interview? Or you mean on stage? In their...
So.
Well, I think it's different, but is that your topic?
So, in 2014, a video went viral that seemed almost impossible to believe. The Danish National Chamber Orchestra was poised to perform Jacob Gade's famous tango, Jalousie. Mid-piece, every musician picked up one of the world's hottest chili peppers and ate it.
I saw that video.
It's incredible. I cannot stop watching it. Like, their faces turned red, eyes watered, hands shook. And yet,
but you have to continue.
They continued playing. Like, I don't know about them, but I would never eat a hot chili pepper. I can't. Like, ugh.
Okay, maybe the wood, they have to use the air and everything, and salvia is a little bit stressful. I think for the strings, it's okay. It's uncomfortable, but I think you can let your automatisms kick in and just knock yourself mentally out and just play.
Can you imagine how uncomfortable?
As a singer, it's kind of, maybe then you have the super power driven, because you're then so hot and your body's working so much, you're just like a fast train.
I kept watching that video and I'm like, oh my gosh. It sounds absolutely absurd, but it's actually part of a long tradition in classical music, pushing performers to the edge, physically, mentally, and sometimes hilariously. Today, we're exploring classical music under the influence. Not just of spices, but of endurance, extreme performance conditions, humor, and unfortunately, even pain. So let's start with humor in classical music, because believe it or not,
that's good. I like
composers have been making orchestras look bad for centuries. For example, take Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Ein musikalischer Spaß. Literally translated, a musical joke. Written around 1787, this piece deliberately makes the orchestra sound inept. Horns enter at the wrong time, harmonies collapse, counterpoint is intentionally clumsy. To a casual listener, it might sound like the orchestra is drunk or even incompetent. But the joke only works because the performers are exceptionally skilled. They literally have to play against what they've been trained to do. Similarly, Joseph Haydn knew how to play with audience expectations. In his Symphony No. 60, nicknamed Il Distratto, or The Distracted Man, the orchestra occasionally seems to lose focus. Players stop to retune mid-movement, as if the music itself is absent-minded. Humor, unpredictability, and human foibles were woven directly into the performance. But classical music has also explored endurance and altered perception, without any chili peppers or jokes. Consider Eric Satie's Vexations, written in 1893. It's a tiny 18-bar piano motif. Something I personally think I could play. Meant to be repeated. Can you guess how many times?
Over 100?
Not even close. repeated 840 times.
Oh, wow. You have to count then. That's the hard part.
18-bar piano motif repeated 840 times. The first full performance in 1963, organized by, of course, John Cage, lasted over 18 hours.
Wow.
Pianists reported hallucinations, disorientation, and total mental exhaustion. The music itself becomes a kind of endurance ritual, a challenge to mind and body. We even have Morton Feldman's String Quartet No. 2, composed in 1983. Performances last 4 to 6 hours. Feldman's slow, sustained textures require extreme concentration. Players describe a trance-like state where normal perception of time and sound begins to warp. Again, no substances, no chili peppers. Just the physical and mental demands of music itself. Even earlier composers like Franz Liszt or Charles Valentin Alkan wrote works so technically demanding that playing them could leave pianists physically exhausted, pushed to the very limits of stamina. Some composers went further, creating performances that are physically extreme or even dangerous. Now, Lena, what if I asked you to perform Der Fliegende Holländer on top of a waterfall?
Just the center area or the whole thing?
The whole thing.
I mean, it would be a cool occasion. It would be horrible sound acoustics. I mean, if they can manage that it's like quite safe to play there, okay. If not, I kind of like my life, you know.
Well, here's a perfect example of that extreme. Take Karl-Heinz Stockhausen's Helicopter Streich Quartet from 1993. Each member of a string quartet performs inside a separate helicopter. While the sound of the rotors is mixed into the music, fear, vibration, altitude, and adrenaline become part of the performance. The player's physical state isn't a distraction, it is the music. Or we have Lamont Young with works like The Well-Tuned Piano and his Dream House installations. Sustained tones and extreme volumes can produce auditory hallucinations or altered perception, transforming the performer's and listener's experience. Now, I do want to touch on this. We need to also confront one of the most human aspects of performance and what performers sometimes have to do. We have to perform through pain, unfortunately. Classical musicians have always performed in pain, not as a stunt, not as a joke, but as part of the profession. Violinists play through tendinitis. Pianists push numb or aching fingers. Wind players endure dizzying breath demands. Pain, unfortunately, is often normalized, sometimes even romanticized, as a sign of dedication. Historically, this expectation runs deep. Niccolò Paganini's extreme violin technique caused lifelong physical strain. Robert Schumann's obsessive technical experiments led to permanent hand injury, ending his career as a pianist. These weren't accidents, they were consequences of pushing the body to the very limits of musical expression. So there is a fine balance that we have to respect. Opera singers, whose bodies are both instrument and medium, have likewise performed under conditions of documented pain or illness. American mezzo-soprano Joyce DiDonato famously fractured her leg during a performance at the Royal Opera House. She completed the act, despite the injury, and subsequently continued performing the role from a wheelchair. This incident illustrates the expectation that performances continue even under acute physical trauma. And of course, we have the Swedish dramatic soprano Birgit Nilsson, renowned for her Wagnerian roles, sang through multiple injuries over her career. Documented incidents include performing after a severe ankle sprain and singing Brunhilde while wearing a sling following a dislocated shoulder. These performances occurred in major international opera houses and were considered professionally normative at the time. In the late 19th century, Adelina Patti, one of the most celebrated singers of her era, performed publicly while suffering from severe respiratory illness. Contemporary press accounts note visible physical distress, yet engagements were fulfilled regardless. These cases demonstrate that singing through pain was not exceptional, but structurally embedded in operatic culture, shaped by financial obligations, audience expectation, and institutional pressure. In the modern era, we may admire these stories as feats of heroic dedication, but they also raise uncomfortable questions. How much suffering has been normalized in the name of art? And what does it mean to honor a performance if it comes at the cost of the performer's health? This perspective helps us appreciate the Chili Pepper Orchestra on a deeper level. Unlike historical pain endured silently or invisibly, this was voluntary, visible, and ephemeral. The audience could see the cost, and the musicians embraced it. Faces contorted, hands shook, eyes watered, and yet ensemble and musical expression remained intact. It's a rare instance where pain, risk, and humor coexist in a live performance, and it resonates because it is human, honest, and visceral. What all these examples share, Mozart's musical joke, Satie's vexations, Feldman's long quartets, Stockhausen's helicopters, and even Joyce DiDonato's wheelchair performances, is that classical music is not just sound on a page. It is physical, psychological, and emotional. It reminds us that musicians are endurance athletes, risk takers, and above all, storytellers, not machines. And sometimes that means performing under extreme circumstances, pushing themselves to the limits, and occasionally doing something as absurd as biting into a Carolina Reaper chili pepper and keep on playing. Well, I hope you enjoyed music under the influence as much as we did. If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
And next time we'll delve into another fascinating chapter of music history. Until then, keep listening and discovering the stories beyond the music. See you next time.